So tell me about the project. What should people expect?
First and foremost, a classic Stan Lee story. This project is so imbued with his sensibility, with his voice, the way he saw the world.
And what's the story about?
Well, I'm like terrified that I'm going to open my mouth and spoilers are just going to come pouring out.
I know, it's scary to summarize what's going on.
But you know, to kind of broad strokes, you meet in this A Trick of Light, you'll meet a young man named Cameron.
This is the last day in the ordinary life of Cameron Ackerson. The power to change changes everything.
And a young woman named Nia, and their connection with each other is something powerful enough to either give immense hope to the universe or possibly to destroy it entirely.
Ooh, a lot of intrigue. You guys are carrying quite the torch, one of Stan Lee's final projects. Tell me about the origin of Alliance as a Trick of Light.
I met Stan originally in the year 2000, and at that point, he was very enthusiastic and optimistic about what the internet could mean for everyone. He said, you take an idea and put it on the internet and it can be seen instantly by people all around the world. There's never been anything like it. And you know, cut to a decade and a half later when we started ideating around this project, and he was more keenly aware of how it was failing to meet that potential. It seemed to be actually dehumanizing us. It was making it so that we weren't seeing the people on the other side on the other side of the screen as human, and we were losing that human connection. And this story is very much about finding the human connection.
How do we see Stan's hand in this? Where will people sort of feel his presence?
With Stan, and this goes back to his days in Marvel Publishing, there's this great question that fans are familiar with, which is what if? And he asks these kinds of questions because he was infinitely curious about the world. In the case of Stan Lee's Alliance's A Trick of Light, the question really started at what is more real, the world we're born into or the one we create for ourselves? And you'll hear him say this and ask these questions in his introduction.
What is more real, a world we are born into or one we create ourselves?
And it is an extraordinarily prescient question and something that is the foundation to build off of all of these characters. And that's, I think, what is so exciting about, you know, when working with Stan is like, what are his questions about the world? What is he asking?
It seems like in typical Stan Lee fashion, one of his last moves was once again to capture this cultural moment.
The superhero idiom involves issues of identity. People have alter egos. You know, you have Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and how do those two personas impact each other, and what's the interplay? And in the modern age, we all have virtual identities. We all have our own sort of alter egos that we present to the world through our social media or what have you. And what is the interplay, and how do those two personas interact, and what's the dynamic?
The platform is also really interesting. Can you tell me more about why you chose audio for this and kind of how people will be consuming it? Stan
got really excited and enthusiastic about the fact that he'd never really done an audio immersive experience. I mean, finding something Stan hasn't done a million times before
right. Was it's a challenge.
Yeah, so he really gravitated towards that, and I think what he loved about it was the idea that the fans would be able to visualize the story, unlike a comic book where it's kind of, you know, presented to you, and that the fans could essentially be his collaborators. They could be kind of the artist visualizing the story and create their own version of it.
This is an amazing opportunity to marry this very contemporary story, a very contemporary plot and contemporary characters with the oldest form of storytelling. You know, there's nothing more elemental than like sitting around a campfire, having somebody tell you a story in their voice. If Stan were here to see the fruits of all of this, how do you think he'd respond?
I think he would be, you know, his enthusiastic, jovial self. He did get, I mean, the manuscript was completed while he was around, so I know he was happy with where that landed, and he was, you know, it was a special story for him. I wish he could have, you know, heard it. I wish he could have heard the final recorded project. It feels like he's present still. In a way, you know, he's just such a part of this that, you know, it's like his excitement is still very much present in this moment surrounding the release.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.